know James.
Yes.
Okay, we're
You
recording.
know Ken Bond and Dale.
Maybe by face when they come in.
Sure. This is Ken right
Ken
here.
Bond
Yes.
Wayne Mack.
Wayne Mack. Nice to meet you.
and Dale.
He's a loose cannon, so just be forewarned.
Dale will be in a
We'll
second.
keep me in the back of the room.
Since we got somebody on the back end of you, we'll go ahead and start. And basically what we typically do is allow Ken up to 5 minutes, in their opening remarks.
Okay.
And then over the next 45 minutes, we'll ask questions. We'll just go around the table and allow you 2 minutes each to answer each question. And if you don't use that whole time, we may have a follow-up question from somebody else that would pertain to that question
Okay.
from the floor, and then give you up to 5 minutes closing. So why don't you go ahead and get started and
Okay.
tell us about yourself and why you're running.
All right. Well, my name is Wayne Mack, and I am seeking the office of Justice of the Peace, Precinct 1. I feel honored to be here today, and appreciate your time and the fact that y'all are engaged in the process and wanting to vet candidates. And so I appreciate the opportunity. I'm seeking this office. I feel like I've spent my entire life preparing for this. I've been very involved with the party, almost 2 decades. I've been very involved in the community. I feel like I've already been a public servant for many years, and I feel like this was a great opportunity to bring that level of service to a whole new level. I feel like this is a very critical position in the community. I've been asked many times to seek public office, and I've said literally for as many years as I can remember that the only office I would ever be interested in seeking would be that of Justice of the Peace, simply because that is one elected position that you could go to work every day and not make everybody happy, but you could certainly know that you made a difference. And that's just the way I've lived my life, John, is doing that. I have a proven record of service, and I feel like as a nation we've gotten away from electing servant leaders, and one of the reasons we're in the predicament we are nationally for sure is that we've gotten away from that principle of electing servant leaders. And I'd be honored if the voters would choose for me to do this, and be very excited at the opportunity to be able to do this office.
Okay.
Is that an open position? It is. Judge Moriarty is retiring, and it looks like right now there's 3 candidates.
Okay, what we'll do is go around the table, clockwise motion, and start off with Larry.
Okay.
Okay. You've had a lot of background in constable and police officer, so you've been in that industry. And certainly that gives you some experience in a lot of the things that JP handles. What other experience do you have that makes you feel that you have the ability to be a judge?
Okay. Of course, as you stated, I have law enforcement experience, but I've spent literally my entire adult life helping people and doing it in such a way that I think would lend to this opportunity here to be able to have a proven record of service in this court. You are able to come and bring disputes with your neighbors, Class C misdemeanors, and it comes down to common sense and having a good moral person sitting in the place of being impartial and administering justice.
How do you how do you be sure that you're following the laws? In other words, not being an attorney and playing the part of a judge. How do you do that?
Well, it's actually, I mean, if you think about it, the Justice Court was designed by the founders of Texas to be a people's court. So it's not meant to be a lawyer there. It's meant for people to come, make their case, plead their case, and come to a resolution. And you hand out good common sense, and it's applying the law. It's not interpreting the law. It's applying it. And I feel like I've spent my whole life doing that. And I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
So on the topic of curfews, I guess the county has a curfew and the state has a curfew for, and different entities, Houston, have different kind of curfew. What's your view of curfews, whether they're healthy, unhealthy? What kind of healthy curfews are good, what kind are bad? And then, because you're going to be dealing with that in court, correct?
Yes.
And then, so if somebody comes in with a curfew violation, how would you handle that situation?
Well, again, being impartial, you would have obviously an officer that has taken a law enforcement action, and so he would have his story, and the defendant would have their story, and it comes down, Brian, to common sense. And what curfews have done from a law enforcement perspective has given officers the opportunity to identify potential issues, because, you know, why should 15, 16 years old be out at 2 o'clock in the morning in your neighborhood? There's a very good possibility they're not out there to have a prayer meeting. And, you know, and it's helped from an enforcement standpoint, but coming into the court, it would be about why it happened and putting common sense. And I know of a situation where a kid that was legitimately coming home from work on a Saturday night, and yes, he was in violation, and the officer thought he was out messing around, but the fact was that he was coming from work. And so that's where you would apply, again, good common sense to, you know.
So what about like daytime curfews where a city or a county will impose that during school hours for the same reason, to help with truancy, help identify, and you can snatch them up easier?
I'm not aware of anything locally that has any.
Yeah, I don't think Montgomery County does,
Yeah.
but I think Harris County does have some daytime curfews. So what are your views on it?
I don't know about, maybe not today, but when my son was in junior high, he and his friend were staying at my house. It was a Saturday, 2 a.m., went to the local gas station to, you know, get something, and I was home, I didn't mind. Got picked up by a CISD under a Woodlands curfew.
In the morning or in the?
No,
during
this
the
was
day?
like, well, yes, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
So what's your view on the daytime
I
curfews?
would, again, as a justice of the peace, you would, if there was that law.
No, that's
But-
not how would
so
you guys judge?
personally-
Yeah, what, is that good or bad?
I don't know, to me, the more government interferes with our day-to-day life is not a good thing. And I would wonder why, and it would have to be a city that would have that ordinance. It would have to be an ordinance. I can't imagine the
You need
legislature.
county or city, yeah.
I personally, I would be opposed to infringing in a daytime. What would be the reason for that? I think there needs to be a good reason for why we.
Well, it's the same reason for the nighttime curfew. The police have a reason, unless you catch them robbing a bank, the police can't just go pick somebody
Exactly.
up. So now if you put a curfew, then you have a reason, during these hours during school hours, you can see somebody in the school age, obviously, you can go and, ask them what you're doing.
Well, and you can do that without curfew being in place, from the standpoint of it.
Yes, you can.
If it's not, I mean, if there's something out of the ordinary, you have to be able to articulate it. But I think personally, Brian, I would, the less law we have, the less infringement of government, the better personally.
Dennis?
As a county GP, you will be asked to rule on some vacant and quiet cases where you got some country bumpkin on one side and a corporate attorney on the other. Part of the job description of a JP is to help develop the case. So what does that phrase mean to you in that regard?
Well, I mean, help develop the case or go through and hear everybody's side of the case.
The wording in the law is help develop the case.
Well, then I've got to apologize because I've never seen that, and I'm not aware of help develop the case. I know there's been some, as far as discovery and things, has changed effective September 1, and some of it's going to be effective January 1 regarding civil litigation, where a judge can now ask questions, where before they just had to listen to what everybody had to say. And then, you know, if the person, like you said, a country bumpkin going up against a lawyer, up until the change, a JP wouldn't be able to say, sir, do you mean this and this? And, you know, you got the letter of the law over here versus the spirit of the law. And so you can ask questions now, but as far as developing somebody's case, I wouldn't know how would you develop their case if they're coming in with their case.
Well, I think it's something in regard to that, where
Yeah.
you might claim the damage is $14, and the defense might say, we need to dismiss it, it's really $15.
Sure.
So he can advise you on
And you
the
can
technical specifics of that
Sure,
sort of
and
thing.
then you can ask the questions, you know, in a civil situation that you didn't used to be able to ask if you were in and they've combined the courts now instead of, it's just justice court now versus the three different courts they had before. I hope that answers.
I noticed on your questionnaire, you had some college ministries. Just wondering, what's your view on the role of religion in politics and in particular in ruling cases as a judge?
As far as separation of church and state, what is
Yeah, that's, I mean, how is that going to affect how you rule in cases?
Well, I think the way our Constitution is set up and the way our laws are set up in this state, I mean, you just bring common sense, moral values to those, and I don't think your religious views can. I don't think you can insert your religious personal views and personal beliefs into in a judicial situation, but obviously. Your moral character and your moral fiber is going to have an impact on how you view things and how you view truth and how you view justice, and so you know I think that I heard Ed Young preach a message not long ago that you know the misnomer of the separation of church and state, or you can't legislate morality, is not true. I mean, we are what we are as a nation, and our Constitution was founded on men that had faith, and so I don't think that it interferes. I think it complements the process, and I think that's the way our founding fathers intended it to be. One nation under God.
Okay. Any follow-up to that?
Well, if a Baptist came into your court, public drunkenness, would you feel obligated to treat them more harshly?
Absolutely. Please stop the video.
Lost the Baptist vote.
Or Catholic, you get equal opportunity,
Required for
right?
Catholic, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it must be,
I like that one, huh?
since 50% of them voted for Obama.
Yeah, tell me that.
They must have been drunk when they went to the polling booth.
Okay, I'd like to dig a little bit deeper on subject that we hit the surface on earlier. Your involvement as a reserve deputy, reserve police officer, police academy, and so forth. Can you describe to what degree, give possibly some specific examples, not obviously names of cases or people, but situations where that has brought you into contact with a JP court? How often? You know, once a month, once a year, never?
Oh, well, when I was with Constable Chumley's office, I was there quite often because the county courts, the constables are the enforcement arm of the county courts. So I served as bailiff, I brought cases there, I did warrant roundups, I wrote citations in the court. So I had a lot of contact then. Since I've been at the city of Conroe, it's a municipal situation, which is almost the same, except that municipal judges don't hear the civil side or the lawsuit side and so forth. But from the misdemeanor side, I've had contact with the courts with that, and so I guess, writing citations or working around warrant roundups where we went up and picked up people that hadn't taken care of their business and brought them back before the judge. As a police officer, that I've had that experience. Is that
In the courtroom?
in the court? Yes, sir.
Yeah, not just in the field, but in the courtroom.
In the court, yes, sir.
Okay, that answers what I was asking.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a hypothetical case, but it's nothing unusual about it, really. So a lawyer files in your court for a debtor, or for a loan company, and it's a bad debt, and quotes from the contract. But it's a credit card arrangement. It's not like a lease or something. Well, the debtor also comes and says that basically, well, let's say the credit balance at the moment is like $6,500, and the borrower has missed the last 3 payments and has told the lender that he refuses to pay. So they show up in court. The borrower claims that the rewards program was wrongly terminated before he stopped payment, and that's why he refused payment. He also objects to the fact that the lender's case was filed without a copy of the agreement. How would you rule?
Wow. How long did you spend time getting that one?
And it was Brian Saul.
I timed it just because didn't know how long it was gonna go there.
Well, I would rule on what the law says that what you'd have to do in that situation.
Which would be?
Well, I'm going to have to tell you that the copy of the agreement and so on and so forth. I mean, the person suing is going to have to produce the fact that they have that case and that they have that contract.
So they have no contract. Do you dismiss the case, or do you tell them to come back later with a copy, or what do you do?
That my gut is, if it's not there, it's not there. But what is the law?
So you let the debtor get away with owing
$6,500.
Because the lawyer did a bad job.
And wow, you're scaring me right here. I'll tell you that right now. I'll be quite honest.
I can tell you routinely they file those assuming nobody's going to show up.
Yeah.
They don't bother showing a signed contract because the lender is usually a large company outside the state, and they don't want to wait, or don't even know who to call. Their own lawyer doesn't know who to call to get a copy of the signed contract.
I think, again, the evidence has to be there. It's just like a police officer.
Well, but as judge, you'll have to say, you can say that, and as not, do you say dismissed, or do you say pay half the $6,500, or what do you say?
Wow.
And what about the rewards program?
Well, again, it comes down to the contract and what the agreement was, and if one
There's
party,
no contract.
and if they can't produce it, then what's the agreement?
So the case is dismissed, you're saying?
I would think it would have to.
With prejudice?
Estimate a year.
Yeah, can you ask me that? I'd have to seek counsel on it, because I'm not an attorney, so I'm not sure, and.
Well, you're gonna rely upon, only one attorney shows up, because,
Well, yeah,
with
but
the
I
company,
mean-
they can't come personally.
Exactly.
You rely on the prosecuting attorney decision,
Well, we would have
thinking it'll be unbiased as an officer of the court or something like that?
to. No.
I was gonna say, wait till I Google this.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I would research it before I made a ruling and made sure that we were ruling in the.
So you'll ask both parties to submit briefs and you'll make your decision later, one of whom is not a lawyer.
I don't think a JP can do that. I don't think you don't submit a brief. There's discovery, and it's not like a district or state court.
Mhm.
But again, it comes down to common sense, and if one party.
So what you
has
tell
not
them,
get the-
move the case to a district court, you wouldn't rule, or what would you do?
Well, I don't, again, I would have to.
I mean, somebody's gonna be unhappy, it's just a question of who.
And that's the downside of this court, is because there's a guarantee that 50% of the people that come into your courtroom are not gonna be happy, because they're gonna be either the plaintiff or the defendant.
But if you can explain your ruling, they may not like it, but doesn't mean that they'll be upset.
That's true,
In this case, I think they might be upset.
yeah.
So how'd that end for you, James?
So did you have to pay the $6,500?
That was it.
So how's it feel to know that in the morning you can go see, read the headline in the Courier?
You can send it to mediation.
Yeah,
That you ran off
and
the
the
gun.
new statute, the courts are encouraged to ask those kind of things to go to mediation.
Even if, let's say, yeah, but, you know, mediation requires payment, and mediation isn't about who's right or wrong.
Sure.
It's about who's most agreeable.
Right. I
Who
agree.
caves?
Yeah.
It's one of the things they put in the new Senate bill, or the House.
So I mean,
bill.
really, you'd probably be doing a disservice to require them to go to mediation. The lawyer would love that because he'll know, oh, I just screwed up royally.
Right.
Woo! I didn't dismiss my case. We go to mediation.
Dodge the bullet.
Yeah.
I think prior to it coming to trial, those were the mediations encouraged, prior to, not after.
Well, in your case though, you don't usually have pre-trial hearings, right?
No.
Everybody just shows up on the day,
Yeah.
so you won't really have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. I have more questions. You
You're
move
going
on.
in
Just-
Sorry.
third or
just-
fourth
I'm
question
sorry.
there.
I'm sorry. Thank you, friend.
Just say, wait, I gotta call James.
When
on
you're
this."
elected, you hire him.
Yeah, on page 3, or it's 3 on mine, number 17, what are the top 3 areas where the budget for this office needs to be adjusted? You indicated increase the percentage of collections of past due citations. What is it now, and how much do you plan to increase that by? And then I've got a follow on to that.
Okay, well, I don't know what the number is because the county is currently in a software deal, and they're.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And there's a, so there, I'm not sure what the number was. I've heard everything, and I don't think they have it broke down by precinct. I think they have it broke down as JP courts as a whole, and it was a huge number of uncollected,
Was there anything you need to do or can do to increase that the way you were saying in your
I
answer?
think I think that's already in the process. They're gonna get some up-to-date technology, and it's going to make it easier for you to grab the data and know it and expedite it in a much faster form, because right now.
Would
what
you
happens-
push to allow us to pay for these things online, or do we have to take off
Absolutely.
time from work and
No,
come down there?
everything that can be done online should be able to do, because the majority of good citizens, they have their issue and they wanna take care of business, they should be afforded that opportunity and should not have to take off from work in the day and age we live in. And the county is in the process of that happening, so hopefully, even prior to us, getting into this court, that process will already be a part, but if it isn't, that will be one of a priority for me to make sure that the court is in the 21st century of citizens being able to take care of what they need to do without having to take off from work.
Okay.
And the operational hours of the court, how would you fine tune that?
Well-
I mean, would you increase that from, and what is it now?
Well,
on average?
apparently it's not uniform across the county. Some of the courts are open Monday through Thursday, and I don't know why it's like that. I was originally told that when the gas prices went up, they changed the operational hours.
You gonna keep them or
No,
change them?
it needs to be Monday through Friday. It does. I mean, because we're
8 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 3?
no, I think right now I believe it's from 7:30 to 5:30. And that's so people can do what they need to do before and after. But if we can get in the technology, we can get so people don't have to take off from work. I think that those hours.
Would you consider like one evening out of the week?
For,
Well, for those that can't do 7:30 to 5:30,
you know, it's been
they
looked.
work downtown
Yeah, and
at Exxon
that would
Mobil.
be something. That'd be something to look at. But
Like you-
I
Something
think
personal
tickets
again.
Take care of that
think if-
$6,500.
That's
I think if the county gets it set up, where technology-wise, why would you need to be there in the evening if you could take care of it online?
Well, that's if you're guilty. I mean, if you wanna challenge it, you have to show
Yeah,
up.
yeah, and that would be, I guess that would be a cost thing, and as far as the need, I've heard that, there's been, in the past, that's been discussed of having like one night court a
We do
month.
Monday to Thursday and then one night of the evening instead of a Friday.
Sure,
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Larry.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's a great
He,
question.
he's always wanted to be a lawyer. You figured that out?
Actually, he's
thank
trying
you.
to solve all of his legal issues.
He's gonna run for
Yeah.
I just
JP.
wanna know where I'm shopping for judges.
Help me
Sound check.
understand, I've heard that some court dockets are backed up. What does that mean, and what do you know about precinct 1 in that area?
Well, I know for precinct 1, because of the current situation where they were using visiting judges,
Mm-hmm.
there is a certain amount of backlog that didn't used to be there. The staff has done an outstanding job of keeping things flowing. It's just a matter of having a judge there to expedite some of this stuff. And so I don't have a number to give you, but I would assure you that if I was afforded this privilege, our docket would be current. And the backed up docket means you go to sue and you get told, well, you're not, you're only gonna do this civil, we only do civil, twice a month, so, sorry, you came in here, and so now you're gonna have to wait till next month. I'll apply the same principles I have for the 20+ years with the county, is that everyone that comes through that door is gonna be a customer. And if the customer needs, of course there's statutory things, but we start to see an increase of credit card debt or cases that are just starting to get backed up, then you expedite it and you have more court dates. And this precinct's unique because they have 2 courts. It's not like the other JPs that just have one court demand. This one has one in Willis and one in Montgomery. So you're split between the 2, obviously.
Is this the court that JP has been sick and?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Would you give us your thoughts about that? How that was handled? And is it being handled correctly?
Well, the county basically had to pay for 2 judges for 1 position.
Yes, I mean, well, they've been paying visiting judges. I don't
Mhm.
think it's come out to a total like 2 salaries or anything, because a lot of the judges have visited, and because they're already justices in the court, there's no charge. And it's just a sad situation. I pray for Judge Morati and his family, that he for 2 years now, that he would get better. It's a sad situation. He's the definition of public servant, 42 years of public service.
But our tax dollar is intended for charity, though.
And that's where from the business side of this, is where I struggle, like many people do, because compassionately, my faith demands and expects that you have compassion on people, but this is a business operation, and I could see where some people would feel like the taxpayers are not
Mhm.
getting what they intended their money to go for.
Okay. Brian?
So, what kind of judge are you? You have judges that kind of go by the book and everything that the law's got to say, even though right says do something else. And then on the other extreme, you've got a Ted Poe who has these creative, ways to make a point, or he's looking past the particular judgment to do something to help somebody. What's your style going to be?
I think, Brian, my style would be to apply the law. Not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. And so when, for example, a single parent mom comes in and she has a truant child, she's working 2 jobs, he's just not going to school, she don't know what to do, she's reached her wit's end, and you have a young man standing before you, sure, you could throw the book at him and you could fine mom and add more burden and say, you make sure your kid gets to school or else. But you could also say, okay, everybody's here, what's the problem and what can we do to fix this? And before you make a ruling, and you could get creative in the fact that a lot of times with kids, they're given community service.
So are you gonna look for these creative Ted Poe things, is that what you're saying, or?
I'm going to treat each case like I would want to be treated if I was in that situation.
Okay, let me go back to the,
But I'm not gonna be a judicial activist,
yeah.
and
So back on the solving these things over the internet versus coming into court, where is the line where, you know, having a 25-year-old that's skipping a couple of tickets, or a 17-year-old that the fear of the court and the, oh my gosh, I'm in court, you can't really do that over the internet. So the court has there's a business part, like, okay, pay this fine, do these 5 hours of community service, and it's, you pay your debt, versus coming into court and, just where.
well, with minors, minors are required to appear with a parent in court, so they would have to appear.
So you run between the parent having to take off work and the child out of school, and where does that line, where are you gonna fall as far as, go ahead.
Well, I think by statute, the parent has to appear with the child when it's a minor and it involves a Class C misdemeanor. They have to be there, so that would probably be an exception to the technology issue, because they have to appear because of the ramifications of a 16-year-old driving 85 and a 40, and you wanting to say you can't do this anymore, and so there's, again, it comes down to common sense and what not only what the letter of the law is, but what the spirit of the law is.
Okay.
As a county judge, it's inevitable that you're gonna have folks, come before you.
Yes,
So,
sir.
how would you apply rules of recusal to those folks that you might know?
Well, obviously, as I answered in the vetting form, I've lived here I know a lot of people. I've had 3 political functions, and I've had over 1,600 people at those functions. Obviously, I don't know all of them, but I mean, it comes down to what your morals are and what your ethics are. And if I feel like I can't be impartial, then I would recuse myself.
Are there any real guidelines, official guidelines?
There are attorney general opinions. Obviously, if I'm,
It's up to the judge, though.
yeah, and it can be challenged if
How about if James comes before you?
With
He
his
doesn't
credit
know
card.
me.
He wants to
He
do
doesn't
it so
know
he
me.
can throw the book at him.
But obviously, if I had any financial interest in somebody that was there, or somebody that was very active in my campaign, and I would not want to represent any in not being impartial. I would not want to. I would not want to do anything that would discredit. The only thing I'm going to take with me to the grave is my integrity, and it's not for sale.
We've gone 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. I was noticing one of the questions you had on the questionnaire was related to the Supreme Court, whether the Constitution is a living document. And your answer was each ruling of the Supreme Court and each interpretation breathes new life into the document. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I feel like the judiciary, the 3 separate parts of all our laws and branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial, and that it's a living document from the standpoint of Texas Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court. Constantly, they're the ones that have to interpret the law, and at this level, at JP, you would apply the law. And so I thought I was, when answering the question, just that, the intent of it, I don't think is something that goes back to judicial activism and some of these federal judges and state judges that are taking it and twisting it being activists from the standpoint of interpreting it versus applying it. And so what I meant by that statement is that as the Supreme Court makes those rulings, it affects how we live our day-to-day lives. And so it's a living document from the standpoint of it's the foundation of our core values in our nation. So that's what I meant by it. I hope that's what.
Okay.
Okay.
Dope.
Okay, do you favor a program that identifies and deports illegal aliens? The rule of law should be followed. Young children who are brought here illegally are innocent and as such should be provided protection if properly petitioned from deportation to a country and culture to which they do not have ties. I understand the emotional thing there, but the point is they're brought here by parents who maybe, let's say the ones who came here, they may have been born here, but they were born to parents who are here illegally. You would not want to deport the children, but you would want to deport the parents, or would you say the parents are exempt from deportation because you don't want to deport the children? How does that all interplay there?
Well, I obviously a justice court wouldn't have anything to do with that from a legal standpoint. That was just my personal opinion, and as this issue as a nation as we face it, I mean, depending on who you talk to, there are 12 million to 16 million people that are here. A lot of them are suffering in silence because I, on a regular basis, pull people over, and there's this horrified look in the children's face that didn't ask to be in the back of that car in America with their parents that are illegal. And as a nation, as a Christian nation, are we going to just start rounding up people and sending them to parts unknown? I mean, there's something that we have to do, and I think the key is what a lot of our conservative elected officials want to do. I mean, we've got to close the front door before we start trying to figure out what the back door is. And
Okay.
And so I answered that is from the standpoint that we need to enforce the laws that are here, and we're not doing that. Just like we're not closing people being able to get here illegally, even though there's laws passed that said that we've already supposed to have done that. And it's from personally that we can't. I ethically and morally, me personally, how do you just start grabbing up children and sending them somewhere that they've never known?
Well, in my particular case, my wife was an Army brat, as the phrase goes, and when she started first grade, she started in France. She was uprooted from America, from the culture that she knew, and transported into France with her parents. Survived quite well. Also survived quite well in Korea. So I don't know that I see that perspective of to a culture they don't know. That does happen all the time. And my real question is, do the parents get a free ride because you don't have the heart to deport the children?
And it's a great question. And again, it comes down to who I am as a person, and maybe I'm too compassionate in that area, that those children didn't make the choice. And the comparison of illegal aliens to somebody who is moved because their father or mother's in the military, I don't think that's an apples and apples comparison.
From the child's standpoint, I think it is.
Yes, generally, but I'm just saying from reality. The reality of it is, you and I come face to face with people that are here illegally, and their children are here, and those children, the only thing they're guilty of is being born. And I don't think as a nation, I don't know how ethically, and with not only as a Christian nation, how would you just pluck people out and just drop them off?
Well, wouldn't it be the
border?
parents' decision? They don't have to leave the child here. And it sounds like we're saying they don't make a decision. Yeah, it's their decision.
Yeah,
If they leave a child here, that's a comment on their parenting.
sure.
I'll actually have two quick ones.
Okay.
We've only got 5 minutes more questions.
Okay, first one is, Dennis signs a contract with me for credit counseling. I'm the credit counselor. Okay, he pays me $5,000. And the agreement, it's a 1-paragraph contract. It basically just says, I will provide credit counseling. Dennis takes my advice, loses his shirt, and wants his money back. And I say, no. So we come to your court. How would you rule? And we have a copy of the contract.
Oh, you got a copy.
And he signed it,
Yeah,
yes.
he always has copies.
And it just says, credit counseling will be provided. And I don't dispute that it was bad advice. So how would you rule? Does he get his money back, or do I get to keep it?
Aren't you glad you got James?
James, you just don't have enough time. You got too much time on your hands, man.
I just wrote it down. These are real cases.
Again, yeah, but again, we'd have to apply the law. And what would the law say in that case?
Yeah, that's the question
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
asking you.
you.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. The law would say that he has a right to sue you. I have a right to weigh all the evidence.
But that's the evidence, so
And-
how would you rule?
I would rule that if it's a breach of contract and you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Well, the contract just says I will give him credit counseling. I gave him credit counseling. It doesn't say it has to be good or bad or anything like
Or
that.
any guarantee.
And then and I'd have to say to him,
You're an idiot for signing it.
well, I probably wouldn't use those terms, but I would say he.
All right, here's
he
another one.
fulfilled his
Ted Poe would.
obligation.
This kind of thing really happens too.
Yeah.
A fellow is found in a parking lot in a car, engine running, stone drunk. The police find him that way. They don't see him coming or going, but they find him engine running. They arrest him not for public intoxication, but for DUI. How would you rule in that case? Is it a DUI? Is it dismissed? What?
Well, a DUI would never come to a justice court. Public intoxication would,
Mm-hmm.
but a DUI would never come to a justice court.
Okay.
Um,
If it did, you tell them wrong
Gotcha.
court.
yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, I have another one I can give to you if I have time. All right. I lease a home.
How's the time going?
He's eating up
I lease-
in the question.
I lease a home.
my time.
I lease a home to Brian.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, then
Did you say the lease?
Oh, time's up.
Okay.
You were already past the time, so
Saved
come
by the
back.
bell.
2 minutes left before his 5-minute.
2 minutes? I got a quick question. It's actually quicker than his. In number 3, please describe the qualification and experience that make you the best candidate for the office you're serving. The second part of your answer was a true servant leader, and we have been asked to serve. By who?
People in the party, friends and family.
In the party?
Republican Party,
Mhm.
yes.
Who all? Can you say who has asked you to serve? Has it been leadership in the Republican Party, or?
Well, I mean, over and over again, I've been asked, like I said, Wayne, when are you gonna run for office? We need somebody like you in office, and so on and so forth. And it's been, party leadership, people involved in the party, candidates. I sought out people that I have confidence in and said, I would like to do this, and they said, I think you should.
Okay, well, put it another way, who is endorsing you, and what is their relationship?
I haven't asked for any endorsements, but I have received support from elected officials as well as community precinct chairs.
Anyone that you want to name that
Well, I
you would
mean,
probably like or dislike?
well, I can
That sounds like a loaded question.
tell you that the sheriff was at my kickoff and spoke.
Mhm.
Brett Ligon was at my fall fundraiser and spoke and encouraged people to vote for me. Judge Metz was there and spoke on why he felt like I would be a great candidate and a justice of the peace. As far as elected officials,
Mhm.
and then of course my pastor, I sought out my pastor's advice and how he felt about me doing it, and some other men of the faith in the community, and asked their opinion. And you know, I've been involved in many organizations. I got involved with the party, and I was asked to serve as a precinct chair. I was asked to be area chair. Been involved in the Lions Club. I was asked to be a board member. Was asked to be a president. And I think it comes back to, again, servant leadership. Every position I've ever held in any organization, I've been asked to do
So can
that.
I squeeze in a comment kind of related to that? So one of the things with the Tea Party is basically a frustration with establishment, of this version of it. And so when there,
But you're still a Republican, though, right?
well, of course.
Okay. All right.
What is a Republican?
That's
Yeah.
a general
different.
question.
Okay,
But
but
he's speaking for himself.
Okay.
Even,
So-
there are some precinct
so
chairs
the Tea Party, as a general, I would say, wants some changes, and that takes courage, from my perspective. So I think what the Tea Party is looking for is a Ted Cruz type conservative leader, whether that be at the county level, state, or federal level. So I guess the question is, how do we know that you're going to be a courageous? That takes a lot of courage, a lot of guts, because you're putting your neck out on the line. I mean, you can stay safe and not muddy the water and still be a good guy, but how do we know that we can trust you? Okay, yeah, the JP may not take a lot of stuff, but you may go farther than JP, or it takes courage at every level. How do we know that you're that kind of courage guy?
Well, I think a great predictor of the future is what has happened in the past.
Hmm.
And I think as a candidate for this position, I have a proven record of having courage, of being a leader. And
What have you done now? I mean, where's the courage? Everybody knows what everybody can say Ted Cruz did this, but what can they say that Wayne did? What did Wayne do that was courageous, that bucked the system, or for the right reason?
Are you talking about my career? Are you talking about politics? Are we talking about, what are we
Oh,
talking about?
in law enforcement.
Okay. I've been a reserve officer in law enforcement, and full-time officers looked down on reserve officers as wannabe police officers. And I've disproved that by doing the same thing they do and willing to take the same bullet they're willing to take, but do it for free. I leave my home in uniform, not knowing if I'm going to come back to my family, going out there to protect your neighborhood and your streets, and
Hello?
for free. And I think that demonstrates courage of going above and beyond. I've done that for
Okay, where are you
almost 15 years. I have advanced a certificate of my police officer license, which generally reserves, all they ever have is a basic. I'm just a couple years away from having a master's level.
Yeah, so Clovers is in.
So that takes courage, that takes time, that takes resources, that takes time away from my family, for free.
A master's in what?
A police officer license,
Okay.
a certificate level master license.
Got it.
And so Brian, I've never done anything halfway. And you know, those aren't just words. That's a proven record of service. It's taking courage to sit across from a county judge or from a commissioner and say, I really don't think that's a good idea. I think we could do it this way and we could save money. I've taken sometimes the unpopular view of elected officials that have very high opinions of themselves and told them, sorry, but we run a business and what you're asking me to do does not make business sense. Over and over again, and I've been respected for it because I treat everybody the same. I don't care if you're a commissioner or a part-time clerk working somewhere, I treat everybody the same.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
All right, why don't we take the next 5 minutes if you will make your closing argument.
My closing argument, well, can I look at some notes here?
Sure.
Would that be okay? Again, I feel like a great predictor of the future is the past, and I think I have a proven record in this community. I've been on 12 different nonprofit boards, asked to be on those boards. I was asked to be there, and I rose to leadership roles in all of them. I served 15 years as a lay youth minister in my faith. I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for nonprofit organizations, and I chose to run for Justice of the Peace because I feel it's a position where I can continue to do what I've done my whole life, and that's attempt every day to make a difference. 3 things I tell my children every day, that I love them, that I'm proud of them, and I tell them make a difference. And when I would take them to school every day, I would ask them, and I would tell them those things, and we would pray as we were going to school. And then when we would pick them up from school, I would say, what did you do today to make a difference? And so programming my children to just not that just be words, but for them to live that. And I feel like in this court would be a great opportunity to impact young people and help people. And I can assure you that this court will be run efficiently, and will provide a fair, impartial forum for people to rectify disputes, provide justice to all the citizens of the precinct. We'll dispose of matters efficiently, and we'll respect in times of death. We'll be very, very respectful of the families and expedite the process there when you're dealing as the coroner for that time in their life. Law enforcement will have 24-hour access. I've always been that county employee that worked 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wanted to know that I did everything to the best of my ability, and I can assure you that our focus will be that, to make a difference. And I'll be that constant caring adult that some kids need when they come in before the court, and we've all had someone in our life that we could look back to and go, I was standing, I made a bad decision, and that man helped me realize that. And for 30 years, I've counseled youth. I've had direct experience working with children that have been abandoned, children that have been a victim of sexual and physical abuse, addicted to drugs, kids that have given up on themselves, and who have been given up on. And I've helped them, and that's just not words. These are names of people that I can give you that we've taken into our home even, that were discarded. And that's what I'll bring to this office. And if I have in that court, you do have the opportunity to have an impact, and I'll be an experienced, firm, accountable approach, because I think people should be accountable for their actions, because as a society, if we're not, then the rule of law, and we have nothing but chaos. And so I will do that, and I'll continue my tradition of public service, and I want the opportunity to do just that, make a difference.
Right. And I was gonna ask or make a statement. The trick question that we put in the questionnaire is number 13 about the Railroad Commission.
Appropriately numbered.
I'm just surprised and shocked that you didn't answer that.
Yeah, no, you
Did you say
passed.
Shrill Baby?
I did.
Passed, yeah.
He answered that one correct.
He didn't BS it, did he?
No.